You are now listening to the Counterflow Podcast, a place for dissonant voices and unapproved opinions.
You get split in half, but I call the hologram graph. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Here is your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back once again to the Counterflow Podcast. As always, I am your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson, coming to you out of Lockhart, Texas. You guys that listen to this show on a regular basis will absolutely enjoy this episode. I know it. I have a somewhat of a decent grasp on what the people that listen to the show like, and it's hard not to like this girl. Cara Mosher, our guest this week, is just a really great person, and her story and her adventure, as we call it, rather than journey, holy goodness, is wild. From psychic medium stuff that she was doing deeply into the occult, not just messing around lightly with it, but actually asking these spirits to be one with her, demons and whatnot, and then bounced out of all of that stuff through a story that she tells on here, and it has to do with Donald Trump. Wait till you hear that one. Protestantism, then it wasn't for her. She started researching. Oh, and here she is in the Orthodox Church now. And she takes a journey out of the one she was attending. And now she goes to the same one as I do. And we got to talking. And lo and behold, I had already been following her on social media, on Instagram at Here Comes Trouble. The book is called Here Comes Trouble. It's a memoir. Her podcast is called Let's Be Friends. And this book is very hard to put down. It's very easy to read, and every chapter is just fascinating and makes you think and laugh and shake your head. And we're going to get into all of it on this episode. Cara Mosher, friend in real life, friend of the show. Welcome for the first time, ma'am. How are you?
Thank you for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here. I'm doing good, hanging in there.
Here Comes Trouble. I'm showing your book. So I try to get people to watch rather than just hear it audio. So I'm giving the benefit of those watching. Here Comes Trouble. I was lucky enough to get an advanced copy. Is that what this is?
Yeah, that's a limited edition right there.
Limited edition. Okay. And Let's Be Friends is the podcast. It's your first time, so I'll let you give an intro to my audience as to what you might think that they'll find pertinent, and then we'll jump in.
Well, hi, I'm Cara. I am also known as Here Comes Trouble, I guess, on social media. I've been doing Instagram since 2020. I started that account and came online because I was writing my memoir that Buck just showed on the screen there, which is about a lot of things. It's about an 8-year misdiagnosis of bipolar, to find out in 2019 that I'd been misdiagnosed. And then I got off pills, and what resulted was a really big awakening. In 2020, when the world was really changing, I went from being like the most fearful person about COVID to like online doing Here Comes Trouble and like making reels about how masks didn't work and that we were all being psyoped and mind programming was real and MK Ultra. And during this time, I kind of like to accelerate my awakening that I was going through, I fell into the occult. I had been doing psychedelics for decades. I always believed in God, but I didn't know who he was. I never grew up going to church. I didn't believe in Jesus. I thought he was a fictional character in a mythological book called the Bible, and all Christians were in cults. So I fell into the occult after waking up to the mind programming of culture. And then I ended up working as a psychic medium, and something happened that changed my life, where I became a follower of Christ, and everything just changed completely. So anyways, that's a long introduction, I guess. I never know what to say, but that's a little bit about me.
That was good, because that just gave it's like the appetizer for what we're about to dive into. All the aspects of what you just said. You did say you found Christ, and we can go further than that and say that you were, I guess we could call you a catechumen. We don't have to get into the details of the ins and outs of that part of it. But you now go to my parish, my Orthodox Church, and we've been talking there. And before we get into your crazy adventures, talk about why you are at my parish. Feel free to not say any names that you don't feel comfortable saying as far as this part of the story goes. But it is an issue that I tackled on this show a few weeks ago with Father Peter Heers. And a lot of converts have dealt with something similar or are dealing with something similar. And there's stress on people's minds. And I don't like that. So explain why you're at my church now.
So I became a follower of Christ 4 years ago, and I fell into Christianity online, and I knew nothing about it at all. And the first thing I ever learned about once you became a follower of Christ is that you needed to be baptized, and that there were 2 baptisms to have, and one was of the Spirit and then one was of the flesh, like an inward and an outward. And excuse me, so the inward one was something that happened like with the Holy Spirit that was kind of like invisible, but very personal. And then the other one was this outward one where you went on stage or whatever and got baptized, and the father of your church, or the pastor of your church poured water on you, or someone dunked you in a pool and baptized you. And it was just to show the world that you were baptized. And so after kind of falling into Christianity online and getting deceived by the different denominations, didn't know there were different denominations when I became a Christian. I was just following Jesus. I ended up going to a non-denominational church where I live in Austin, Texas, and I was baptized, as I say in my book, on stage, like at a TED Talk. And it was a very powerful moment to me. I don't want to sound, this is my opinion. This is my personal way that I'm seeing all this. I don't want anybody to think that I'm not here to convince anybody that their baptism wasn't valid or nothing like that at all. That's only for God to know. But I look back now, and what I've learned now, why I'm in the Orthodox Church, is why I research church history. And I now believe that there's the original church that Jesus set up after Pentecost, which was Orthodox. And the first church was in Antioch, Turkey, and it was Orthodox. And so I wanted to get as close to the truth at the beginning of the game of telephone that did happen over time. And so that's why I'm at an Orthodox church. Well, I was baptized in a Protestant church where I didn't really think much of the experience. Holy water wasn't poured on me. I wasn't dunked 3 times. I didn't have my feet washed clean. I didn't have prayers of deliverance done over me. So I am a catechumen at an Orthodox church, or became one at an Orthodox church in Austin. And it turns out that church, when they chrismate me, which is when you get illuminated, when you're chrismated, because you come in as a seeker in the Orthodox church, or an inquirer, and then you want to become a seeker and a learner. And when you're a catechumen, you're a learner. You're learning all about it. And I'm almost to the end of that. I've been a catechumen for about a year now, and I would be chrismated and become Orthodox and be able to partake in the Eucharist. But if you've never been baptized before, you get baptized and chrismated. Because I had the Protestant baptism, they're telling me that I've already been baptized. And the Nicene Creed says that we believe in one baptism for the remission of sins. And so they're basically what I've come to see is that if you're
let me interrupt you real quick, just for people listening. She just said the Nicene Creed, one baptism for the remission of sins. We don't mean you get baptized once. We mean there's one proper baptism. So go ahead, Cara.
Yeah. So I see a lot of the different denominations out there, they have some heretical beliefs. And so right. I also one thing that's really important to me is when I learned about apostolic succession, which is this blessing that every priest in the Orthodox Church gets that goes back to Jesus Christ, to his original 12 apostles. And then they blessed, the ones that they taught, and so on and so on. I would like someone who has apostolic succession, that connection to Jesus, connected to John the Baptist, to baptize me in this. I'm choosing an Orthodox church for myself because that's the bitter cup of medicine God's given me in my life. I went deep in the occults. I was in the kingdom of darkness for 38 years. I did horrible things I don't even want to talk about. I think I feel deep within me. I can't even give you words. I need to be baptized and chrismated. I don't see my baptism as the one in the Nicene Creed that I say that I believe in. It was in a powerful moment. It was an outward proclamation to the world. My testimony originally I gave when I became a Christian, I gave online on a podcast called the Not So Secret Societies podcast that was very popular. So my testimony went viral and it was very public. And there were a lot of people that would message me online saying that God used it. in their journey with Christ, or it somehow really meant something to them. So part of why I got baptized publicly was to show all these people, because a lot of people doubted my testimony when I first gave it, because it's strange. I came out of the occult. I was working as a psychic medium. I got a vision of Jesus. That's how I became a follower of Christ. I never read the Bible. And so people were questioning me, and it was strange. And so part of what I did, that baptism in Austin at the Protestant Church, was to show, I really believed it was an outward sign. I didn't think anything happened in that moment of remission of my sins. That was a long answer, but
No, that's good. That's good. Okay. Well, you've hinted at it a bunch. We'll start. Well, we're going to go through. I told you the other day in person, I hate the word journey, and you said, how about adventure? So I'm going to start using that. We're going to go through parts of the Cara adventure. What I'm excited to start with is I rarely get to speak with someone. Well, I don't really get to speak with someone who hates Donald Trump, who will give me a reasonable, non-heated discussion as to why. And so you have a chapter in your book about this. You were one of those left-wing people that stayed up all night after he beat Hillary Clinton, just distraught, crying, upset. He was the worst person on the planet. Talk about that, because I'm fascinated. I'm just glad I get to, like, what were you thinking? Not that, and we'll preface this with, I don't think he's some sort of king by any means, but I have never understood the irrational hatred, and I've never got a real clear, good answer. So we'll go to, where was your mind back then? And then we'll get to how you came out of that. I find it also intriguing.
I love your intrigue. The first podcast I was ever a guest on was called My Maria. She's an account online, My Maria 777. It's funny. And she was so intrigued that I was someone who hated Donald Trump. And at that time, it was 2021 winter. I was like kind of more a fan of his then. I hadn't like really totally woken up to where I am on him now, which is I don't trust any politicians, basically. But I know what it's like to hate Donald Trump. And so I wrote this chapter in my book called I Love You, Donald, because I really want to give this like perspective on him, because he was part of my awakening. Like, basically, I started doing this loving kindness meditation in spring 2020 because I was doing this therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy, because I was misdiagnosed bipolar for 8 years. Found out in 2019 I'd been misdiagnosed. 30,000 pills later, I was very sick. Like, I was capped out on pills. That's how I found out I couldn't take anymore. And I instead did treatment for dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a skills-based therapy that basically replaced my pills. Because I still was, just because they said you're not bipolar, I still was the same person with all of the emotional like sensitivities that I'd always had. I just needed to learn how to process them and understand them. And one of these skills to help like become more loving, which was a skill, was loving kindness meditation. So you wanted to do this for yourself every day, which was like to wish yourself success, happiness, to be free from suffering. And then you thought about, you're supposed to think about the person you hated more than anyone in the world to like make you be more loving. So it was either going to be Kim Kardashian or Donald Trump for me at that time. And I didn't care for how Kim Kardashian like made women feel about their bodies and stuff. It was just unattainable to have your ribs removed. Anyways, so I picked Donald and I started doing the loving kindness meditation for him every day. And I like in 2016 when he won, I was devastated. I literally unfriended people, kicked them out of my house. Like I was like, Obama's still president. Like I was a hardcore liberal. Okay. Like I went to the women's march. I didn't have a pussy hat. That would have been super embarrassing. Not as embarrassing as thinking I was a member of the Galactic Federation, which ended up happening in 2021 when I felt
We'll get there. We'll get there.
But anyways, with the Donald stuff, all of a sudden I just started thinking like, why do I hate him so much? Like I had never thought about that before. And I was like, I should love everybody. And because we want everybody, like he's president, Cara, whether or not you want him to be. So you want him to be successful for not just everybody else, but for you. So you want this, you just want the best for everybody. You shouldn't hate anybody. And so I changed the news channel for the first time off NPR World News on the Hour. And I was like, whoa, like these other like Fox News. Oh my God, I watched Fox News. It was like sacrilege of me to do that as a Democrat or liberal. And they were like saying good things about him that I'd never even heard, that on the same like week had like NPR was talking about him different. I saw that and then I was like, what was he talking about with fake news? Is this what he was talking about? And then I was like, but how could women like Donald Trump? Like literally, how could they like grab him by the pussy Trump? Like we all saw these videos, like he, cheated on his wife and she was pregnant. Women can't stand by him. And so I went on Instagram and I looked up accounts with like women that had like MAGA hats that looked like they were supporting him and they looked normal. I kept looking around. I'm like, these people don't look crazy. These just look like normal women I'd be friends with. And then I started seeing another pattern and it was save the children #. I was like, why do the children need saving? Like, what is this all? What are these women they like Donald, they like save it. So it literally led me into the rabbit hole. So in this weird way of loving Donald, he like my heart expanded in a way that I realized I should like, Jesus tells us he leaves us with the golden rule, right? To love our neighbor as Christ, to love our enemies. He says, turn the other cheek for your enemy, like give them your shirt and whatever they want. So he humbled me huge. He showed me that mind programming was real because I saw that it was mind programming. That's why people hate. You want to know why they hate Donald?
Yes.
It's because they're mind programmed to do it. So love them. That's why Jesus says, forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing. That's why they're mind programmed. Mind programming is very, very real. I've been under it in so many ways. Like that's what my book is all about, like the mind programming. And Donald, like he is here. He's a magic spell. You go into him in the occult or symbolism, like it's unbelievable. Like his grandmother was like Elizabeth Christ, born on 6/24, like 2006 or something. That's like a 666 day or something weird. I'm just saying it off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. But there's also like there's futurism where they kind of like believe that all of these like end times events are happening. And I believe that Revelation's been like played through over and over again. And I think they're using Donald Trump right now as an antichrist figure in the most recent like scripting out of Revelation. And he is, but what is intended for evil will always be used for good. So whatever Donald is, whatever he's doing, he was a catalyst for my awakening and I'm grateful for that. And I love him and it's taught me to love everyone. And he's been such a blessing to me because it literally brought me into the rabbit hole, which I needed to have happen so I could fall like in there and go insane, which I call that all like that in the occult, the luciferian labyrinth. And then finally there's only one way out and that's God.
Once a month, my supporters of this show and myself and a special guest have a Zoom meeting. It's not recorded, it's not posted, it's just private. It's between you guys, the guest, and myself. I do this because it means a lot for you guys who support me by showing me that this show means a lot to you. I love talking with you. I look at it as like a benefit for people that support the show, but it's really a benefit for me. I get to know you guys and have an off-the-record discussion with our guest. And, sometimes topics you don't want to necessarily have all the ins and outs discussed online, if you know what I mean. So to be in this group, please go to patreon.com/counterflow and donate $5 or more per month. And it gets you in this club. We do it once a month. It's a great time. It's great people. They're all smarter than me. So that's an upgrade from what you're used to. I can tell you that. The guests are always guests that people want to hear from. A lot of you guys will be familiar with many of the guests. Father Turbo's done it. Father Deacon Ananias has done it. David Patrick Carey's done it. My own priest, Father Ignatius, has done it. Father Moses McPherson's done it. It's a very good time, and I think you guys would enjoy it. If you love this content, please go to patreon.com/counterflow, $5 or more per month. Thank you.
Through Jesus Christ.
I have known a few people that had a kind of a similar experience. Boy, it's rare though. It's rare. The lefties I know that hate him, it's unhealthy for sure. And it's hard to imagine them snapping out of it, but who knows? I want to ask you about, you said you were meditating and thinking about, loving thoughts towards him. There's something you mentioned in that chapter that I found interesting. Can you speak on meditation and the possible dangers of that?
Yeah, that's always something that people are like, what? Meditation now? First you're going to tell us yoga is a Hindi practice. Now, yeah, meditation is like, it could be dangerous. So we want to keep when I first became a follower of Christ and I'm reading the Bible, it's like, you want to keep your mind captive on God all the time, basically. And I was like, what? God, you're possessive. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to like think about you all the time. No way. Like I'm an individual. And then in Orthodoxy, there's noetic prayer where we're praying all the time. Like you might have to survive the fiery furnace with the Jesus prayer on repeat. I actually think that's probably how it's going to be. There's a reason for that because, an idle mind is the devil's playground. And I was in a natural medium. I call myself an accidental psychic. And I didn't realize how open I was. And so I went through this journey and had these experiences where I accidentally was communicating with the spiritual realm and such. So when it comes to meditation, though, like that's more extreme when I'm talking about when your mind is just open, like I did when I was doing this loving kindness meditation for Donald, a voice dropped in my head. And it was what asked me, why do you hate him? And that was probably a spirit because I highly doubt an angel's coming in to talk to me. Like I'm not that important. And God's going to be really clear if he gives you a message. Like the spiritual realm is very like tempting or trying to breadcrumb you or play games with you. God would just give you the answer. God's not here to play games with us. He loves us. So when you're open-minded and you're in meditation and just thoughts just drop in, where do they come from? You really don't know. You really don't know. That's, I don't, it's just like, so yeah, and that's kind of thing about the yoga thing that's interesting. We might as well get into that because I did a lot of yoga at one point in my life. And it was right before I had I was doing Ashtanga yoga 5 days a week for a year and a half. I did Kundalini breathing exercises too, not knowing that this was a Hindi practice or anything at all. Not religious, didn't believe in Jesus, but I'm doing this practice. And when you do yoga, all the poses are different, like Hindi or like poses to honor different gods of their religion, which I personally believe are demonic. Maybe avatars for the fallen angels. We don't really know. Right. But I believe in one uppercase G God, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And Jesus Christ is what left the 99 to come get me. Like this is very real. And so, but I was a seer, what you considered a seer. So I would see spirits in the spiritual realm when I would do psychedelics. And eventually that's what led me to be a psychic. And that's how I would see things like Buddha or Ganesh and stuff. But it didn't happen until I started doing yoga. And I didn't tie it together until I wrote my book. There's a chapter called Once You See, You Can't Unsee. And it's about how the spiritual realm activated me to see it. And it was Ganesh that portaled through my friend's eyes. And I was literally doing yoga all the time then. And Ganesha is like a Hindi god. Right. And it's not by mistake that I saw him and that their beliefs started coming into my mind about past lives and just like karma and all these things. Yes. So, and what happens though? So you do yoga, you do the poses, you do the Sanskrit, you're like chanting things you might not even know what you're saying. You're invoking these spirits and you're giving with your free will. You're calling them in and honoring them in these positions you're putting your body in. And then at the end of yoga, you lay in Shavasana, which is corpse pose. This ties into your meditation question. You literally lay there like for 15 minutes on your back after you've summoned in all these spirits, called them in, and you lay there and then they just drop their thoughts there. Yeah, man.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? Yeah, I know. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm a party pooper here.
No, this is stuff. I appreciate this because you've done this. You've experienced like the worst of the worst. And so you're telling it like it is. Speaking of mind control, also really quick, I don't know if we still have to be careful with certain words on here. I've been flagged a bunch in the past, but it seems like the quote unquote vibe shift has helped that. But let's say the illness that was going around in 2020, also get to ask someone about this. And I asked you this in person the other day. I'm so fascinated. You were one of those people that was genuinely freaked out by, we'll call it the coof. And again, I never get to talk to someone who's like that and have a reasonable, they're just going to freak out and yell at me or something.
Seriously?
So, well, yeah, because, yeah, that's weird. So you were one of those people. You were masked up, gloved up, washed stuff. Why did you feel that way?
Because I literally thought the boogeyman was going to come kill me through a little molecule. Like a little, I felt, oh man, it's embarrassing. But like, I went to the pharmacy in like March, I think 2020 with like a trench coat on and like sunglasses, double masked already. I was looking at N95s in January because I was listening to NPR World News on the Hour, and I heard like probably like the first couple news reports about this. And I was like, I'm not even kidding. I was like, I'm going to find a vaccine on the black market. And so, I mean, I was just like, I'm going to figure out how to do that. Like, get it early. Like, I'll spend whatever I need to. I was insane about needing this vaccine. But this was while I was coming off of pills. So I was mind programmed at that time by like the only reason I was coming off the pills is because they didn't work. That didn't mean I knew the truth about Rockefeller medicine or pharmakia. Pharmakia in Greek means sorcery or poison pills. It's sorcery. It's but yeah, like one time I was like walking to my car across my sidewalk to bring my groceries in, and somebody was walking by, and it was like early 2020, and I was like, "Stay back! Don't get near me!" I like yelled at my neighbors. I was like, "This is trying to bring my groceries in." I was wiping down stuff. We panic bought toilet paper. I was like standing in line around the HEB, like a methadone clinic, to try to get hand sanitizer, and I bought all sorts of like soap and stuff. I threw it all away. Like I made my boyfriend. Like he talked to a friend too close, I thought. And so I was like, put this hand sanitizer on your face. Like it was awful. I was awful. I was mind programmed.
And that was just essentially the media you were consuming was NPR?
Yeah. World News on the Hour. Think of the mind programming of that.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's about to be defunded. We shall see. That's fascinating. And so
Bill and Melinda will have to stop funding it. They're one of the main donors, NPR.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling when RFK gets confirmed, they will be in the crosshairs, hopefully. Let's see. Did the whole waking up, the Trump waking you up and the stuff the diving into the rabbit hole, which we'll get into here in a second, is that kind of what got you out of the coof scare as well?
Actually, it was like I started kind of questioning things. Like I just like in general in the world, not COVID directly though. I have had bronchitis a ton throughout my life. And so I was telling people that I was high risk. Isn't that funny? And I'm like, one time I was like, yeah, I'm high risk. And someone's like, what? And I was like, I've had bronchitis. Like I really thought I was going to die.
Yes.
But so in 2020, when I started waking up, I went online to try to meet friends because nothing was open. It's so crazy. This was just 4 years ago. Did people forget how insane things were? Like you couldn't go places. And I reconnected with some friends in Austin, but they were online doing moon ceremonies. I didn't know what that was, but it was an excuse to hang out with people on Zoom. And I'd never really done this. And I was dying to meet people. This is going to come into how I got comfortable with COVID. I go on these long runarounds. I guess I do talk a lot.
You do the weave. That's what Trump calls it.
I do the weave.
Yeah.
And so I started to go, this is how I fell into the new age. Like I was doing psychedelics for decades and I started seeing spirits and having them talk to me for about a decade prior to this. But I literally thought that everybody had this experiences when they did mushrooms. Everybody blasted off on DMT, but I just hadn't talked to other people about it. I kept it to myself. So this is how I fell into the new age kind of, which is the occult, which is, okay. It's just, I call it Satanism rebranded in my book. Yes. I wrote a chapter on it.
Yeah.
And so I started going to these moon ceremonies to meet people. And we're in this moon ceremony. This is funny. And at the end of the ceremony, we had to talk about how we were doing. And it was, I was just getting off my pills. It was summer 2021. And I was like, I'm doing great. I feel awesome. I don't know. I'm just really feeling like myself again. And the girl who ran the meeting interrupts me and goes, "Oh no, you're ascending to the fifth dimension."
Hello.
She goes, this is ascension. This is because the age of Aquarius is here and you're being brought to the fifth dimension or something like that. And I was like, the what? But I kept going back to these moon ceremonies, which basically is breadcrumbs into magic. And then all of a sudden I'm doing ayahuasca with the group by September. That was when I had to decide to take the mask off fully. So because I was
the actual N95 mask, you mean? Not metaphorically.
Literally,
metaphorically. Okay.
Well, no, both. Because to do ayahuasca, you can't. You puke for you throw up for 2 hours. You can't have a mask on for that.
Yeah.
It would be real weird to be doing a ceremony and have a mask on too. They're 30 people in a small room, so it's very personal. So it was these people helped me. They did a lot of great things in my life. Because I started eventually going to parties at their house we were having parties like during when there was lockdown and like, just took the mask off. And it was like having honest, I hate to say it, but it felt like having unprotected sex or something, taking the mask off at first. That's how mind programmed I was to it. At first, I was like, oh my God.
I thought you meant it felt good.
Oh, no. Oh my God. That's a man's perspective. Maybe we should cut this out. Sorry. But, that's how like I felt like I was, oh my God, I'm really risking it. But you do it and then it's just like ripping the Band-Aid off and you realize.
Did it click after that? Like, wait, I've been around all these people. I think I was brainwashed with that stuff too.
Yeah, the more I started learning, just like, I was just like, this is they just like, this is a psyop. This is a psychological operation and it worked on me, but I woke up fast. Like part of why I woke up so fast was in a month before the month I started going to the moon ceremonies. This is also about when I started talking to a psychic medium in 2020 for the first time in my life. Because I didn't believe in psychics and stuff like that, or magic, or Satan, or demons, or anything supernatural, till I actually connected with this New Age occulty group in 2021 and did the moon ceremonies. Prior to that, I thought what I experienced on psychedelics was just what everybody experienced. It's the hallucinations, the astral projecting on my body was just the psychedelics. It was not, I didn't. And so I connected with this group and sorry, I just like totally lost my tangent.
No, that's okay. Well, you're talking about, you were almost just kind of a materialist. You didn't believe in spiritual things.
Oh, and right. Yes. Thank you. You're a good interviewer. Thank you. Thanks. You're staying with me when I forget where I am. And so right after I did the loving kindness meditation to Donald Trump was May 2020.
Okay.
And then I'm getting off my pills. I'd been on 20 pills a day. I'd been on pills for 8 years. They had numbed me. 30,000 pills is the estimation. During 5 psychiatrists misdiagnosed me bipolar. I was not bipolar. I don't even believe in these conditions anymore. It's another conversation. But I got off my pills.
It's going to be a part of this conversation. We'll get there too.
Yeah, totally. I love talking about that. But so I did the loving kindness meditation to Trump. It sparks my awakening. But I'm getting off my pills. June 2020, right after Trump meditation stuff, I get off my antidepressant, my final pill, and I attempt suicide for the first time in my life. I'd had suicide ideations, which is when you don't want to be alive, since I was 16. And this was the first time I'd ever attempted suicide. Getting off an antidepressant, side effect can be to attempt suicide. I had brain zaps. I was not doing well for a long time. I write about it in my book. So I was like, maybe I am bipolar. Maybe something's wrong with me. Look at this. I'm off my pills and this happens. And so what I did was, because I didn't die, took a knife to my wrist and I did not die. So I got a hotel room that night because I was like, I got to do mushrooms because that's what I did at that point in my life to heal or to try to get close to God. I just took psychedelics. So I took 2 grams of penis envy mushrooms, my favorite strand. I haven't done psychedelics since all of this. And not since this moment, but for 4 years. I took 2 grams of mushrooms and I wrote a letter to God and I said, Dear God, I know you kept me alive today. I have nothing I want to live for anymore. There's no success, no material item. There's nothing I want with my life. I give myself back to you. Like I give this vessel back to you. Do what you want with my life. I know you kept me alive for a reason. Took the mushrooms. And then I basically woke up in the spiritual realm with like 12 spirits surrounding me. Like, yes, this is it. Like you did it. Like you woke up this time. You're going to heal yourself. And I had this crazy experience that I now believe was the spiritual realm enlightening me, a false illumination. And that sparked my awakening. And that's when I went to the moon ceremonies and I was like, I'm feeling great. Well, I'm getting off pills. I had this crazy experience with the spiritual realm, did something to me. I woke up I used to call it my quantum awakening. I went from like the most fearful, mind programmed, retard. Oh, it's not nice. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to bring that word back and normalize it.
Yeah, we should.
And went to just like all of a sudden like illuminated and like awake and just like totally like crazy and like questioning everything and just knowing. It was like I knew about like when someone told me about 9/11, like I always believed that it was done by terrorists, and I would scream at people about that too. if they tried to say it was anything else. Well, I remember after, like a couple months after this illumination that happened in the spiritual realm, and I start doing ayahuasca and I start doing psychedelics with this occult group, and we start like opening circles and summoning in spirits. It's like someone asked me about 9/11 and I just knew it was an inside job. Or like someone would mention something, I just knew things. It was just like, yep. I didn't even have to think about it. It just made sense. Like it's hard to explain, but yeah.
So, well, then you've walked me into where I wanted to go next. It's what you call the Luciferian labyrinth. And there's a saying by, I think Michael Malice first coined it, that you should take one red pill, but not the whole bottle. And it seems like if you take the whole bottle, you know, I've often said sometimes people that are so deep into conspiracy stuff or almost have a Gnostic flair to what they're doing because they think that they found I've got the secret knowledge that I've discovered it. I know what really happened. There's a touch of that in there. So talk about how you went down the rabbit hole and now this Luciferian labyrinth. I think that's a perfect name for it.
Yeah. So like, I see the Luciferian labyrinth as like the place where the spiritual realm can like mind program us. I think it's being done with like the pharmaceuticals and the sorcery of that and like drugs, like psychedelics takes you into a portal of like amplifying the spiritual realm. Because I believe the spiritual realm works through sensitivities and it just amplifies all of that. So if you're already sensitive, you're going to access it easier. Kind of goes hand in hand. And then also the Luciferian labyrinth is like the conspiracy rabbit hole, the internet, the metaverse. Meta in Hebrew means is dead. And I believe the internet was like basically created for all these conspiracies in this like meta world where we have our avatars exist in this kind of like false reality, and you can like get lost in it like a labyrinth where you're like, you realize that this world is not right. And then you start like Hansel and Gretel, you go to the next conspiracy, or in Candyland, you go to the next place, and all of a sudden you're like lost in conspiracy world where everything's a psyop, everything's demonic, everything's satanic. You can't enjoy your life anymore. You're paranoid.
Yes.
Like you start seeing synchronicities in everything. You get what I call symbolism syndrome. And actually what it is apophenia, which is the condition where you start seeing like unrelated things are all connected and you start seeing synchronicities in everything. Well, when you look into this is considered the first stage of schizophrenia. And I think schizophrenia is where people are just like totally afflicted by the spiritual realm. I think bipolar, you're also being afflicted by the spiritual realm. I even think depression, anxiety, all this stuff can be afflictions from the spiritual realm. When you go to the 1950s, we had the DSM manual that was created. But just prior to that, we had all the mind programming experiments done on people where they were looking at the mind and they were seeing how to kind of like mess with it. Or, like the Nazis were doing this, mind control experiments. And then we have all like these drugs come out of that time frame and these labels in this manual for the conditions that the drugs treat. That was the 1950s. All prior before that in time, these afflictions that the 1950s gave labels to so they could create the problem and offer the solution, which was the pill. There was spiritual affliction, oppression, possession. Like that was just what you got treatment at the hospital, which was the church.
Yes.
Orthodoxy, that's where the real help. And so I was searching my whole life to get better. I went to rehab in my early 20s. I've had multiple like mental breakdowns. I just like became a catechumen last year. Like the next book I'm writing is called Becoming Human. Like Here Comes Trouble is the trouble that I fell into. All the ways I fell away from God. And I'm trying to warn people, like to tell them, like use my story as a do not. The mental health stuff, all of that. It was just like spiritual things. So anyways, the Luciferian labyrinth is this place where the spiritual realm can mind program you. Like I ended up going crazy from the stuff that I was starting to believe and learn from the spiritual realm as a psychic and a medium, like opening circles and calling in spirits and like mind melding and astral projecting and them like telling me stuff and me believing it without a foundation in God. Because I was not a believer in Jesus. I had never read the Bible. I didn't grow up going to church. I didn't know there were fallen angels. I didn't know there were demons. I didn't believe in Satan. I didn't believe in evil. And so I was not afraid of these spirits at all. Like Lucifer comes as an angel of light. I was tricked by them.
Yeah, it's certain church fathers say that God closed the eyes of man to certain hidden things as a mercy. And once you become closer to God through theosis, like certain saints have been able to see certain hidden things, if you will. But it seems like if you're not closer to Christ, and you're using other implementations to get these same hidden secrets or the occult stuff, if you know that it's bad because you're doing it without Christ when it's supposed to be done with him. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. No, there's like one thing that I've learned in through Orthodox teaching is that like there's a season for everything, and everything's not necessarily good or bad. It's just like I've even heard like, and don't listen to me, everybody, go talk to the father priest at your church. What do I know? I'm just a catechumen. But some of the earliest icons of the Garden of Eden may have had psychedelic mushrooms on there. Something resembling that.
Okay.
That was.
I have one. I should go look at it. After this.
That was told to me by the father of the church that I was just attending.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, but I've heard theories that like we weren't, but God also said, don't eat from that tree. Is that the tree of psychedelics? Because I learned you learn an infinite amount of information. Not everybody's ready for
Correct.
that.
Yes.
Not everybody is ready for that. And I was not afraid of any of that. And I should have been. Because it was stealing. I only got saved. I'm only still alive by the grace of God. I know that.
Right.
I was humbled. I've been humbled hard because of what I did. Like, and I'm sure God will humble me even more for acting like I'm humble. You know, like it just doesn't, that's how you come. So I got enlightened by the spiritual realm. I say like, I got this. I was so smart. I figured it out. I got the answers. I was going to heal myself. I am a God, basically. That is pride. I've heard that the fallen angels were some of the angels with principalities that came down here to like look over an area, to have dominion over it. But what happened is people fell down and started worshiping them instead of God. That's why they were the fallen angels. So basically, we think we become these angels through this false illumination or enlightenment. It's pride. Satan fell from pride. It's the same thing happening to us. And so you need to be humbled completely to know that you can't do anything good without God. We're totally weak. Our power is made perfect through him. So then he will change our heart, our stone heart, and open up our noose and illuminate us with the knowledge when we're ready for it. But he gives that to us when we're ready. And it's through the humility that he gives us that. And we get it from him.
Yes.
It's so different. It's the opposite. That's considered illumination. So we've got like this world, like there's always two sides of the coin, you know, like there's an inversion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When you were in that DMT, ayahuasca, psychedelics, those circles, was there some sort of acknowledgement of like, oh, it's just God or the higher being or earth? Were they using certain terms to mean just some sort of being that was some almost nebulous and not the Christian God? Yeah,
like Gaia. You'd hear Gaia a lot. You'd hear Christ consciousness, the collective, the universe. But at the, I was very skeptical to do the ayahuasca ceremony because I started started realizing that like I had really crazy psychedelic experiences. Like I usually did them alone, but when I did them with other people, 100% of the time people would say, I've never had such a deep psychedelic trip. And I was like, finally realized I took people with me.
Yes.
And I went really deep. And when I did the ayahuasca, it was the 30 people. I was so worried about being affected by their experience. And even the shaman, one of the shamans beforehand told us, keep your eyes closed as often as possible so you don't take on the demons around you. Because people purge out demons. It's exorcisms. But you know what? It's 7 spirits worse than before exorcisms. You know the return of the clean spirit? Yeah.
I do.
This is the problem when people go and they do psychedelic trips to heal or ayahuasca or even, the charismatics, if they're doing these exorcisms where they cast out demons, you don't mess with demons.
Yes.
Jeez, this is not for us. Like, we don't even know what we're getting into on that. To get away from a demon, you need to be humble. They're prideful. We do the opposite of what that is. But when you do these ceremonies like ayahuasca and stuff, or where you're emptying yourself and you don't feel, what are you filling yourself with?
It's going to be worse.
7 spirits worse than before are going to come. And that's it happened to me. If you don't have the Holy Spirit, but if you have the Holy Spirit, you're not going to go to ayahuasca or do a quick fix because you know that this suffering is a blessing. It's a bitter cup of medicine that you're getting because you need healing. I heard a story about a monk that had a guy come up to him and he was like, you won't believe this, father. Your father won't believe this, or a priest. He's like, I don't drink anymore. I prayed to have my drinking problem go away. And guess what? It's gone. It's amazing. I stopped drinking. And the monk said to him, oh, John the Apostle's crying in heaven because of this, or in paradise. He said, why? He said, because there was a crown in heaven waiting for you if you had overcome that. Like we're here. You know what I'm saying? And you really I'm not trying to be prideful here, but you really get it when you in Orthodoxy. Now I was going to say you choose Orthodoxy. No, I think God brings you to the medicine that you need. That's why some people's baptism in the Protestant church, that's what they want. That's what they need. That's what they're going to be. Not everybody's going to make it to the same place in the race because we're all different.
Yes, it's beautifully put. There's a line, and I almost feel bad throwing this at you, but it's beautiful. Do you remember what you said the Luciferian labyrinth's ultimate disguise is?
Oh, yes. It's like a femme fatale, like a chair or a cherry on top of a sundae, like something that looks, I think it's what you say. It's like a femme fatale. It looks really good, but it kills you in the end, or like it's going to get you in the end. Maybe?
I think it was making, gosh, now if I could find it really quick, this is good podcasting right here. I'm going to find it. 109, because I have it underlined and wanted to ask you. Here we go. The Luciferian labyrinth's ultimate disguise is that it's beautiful and alluring, like an angel of light.
Yes, like an angel of light. Exactly. It's like flashing lights. Like the psychedelic realm is super fun. It's like the Dr. Seuss world where anything can happen. You can see, you feel ecstasy. It feels super good by design. That's how mind programming works. It's like you get someone to feel a certain way and you imprint something in their mind. And even solving conspiracies feels great. Like I got really prideful and into that online when I had the Not So Secret Societies podcast, especially like for like 20. Once I woke up in 2021, I was like researching conspiracy like 10 hours a day, and like because of my knowledge of the occult, and then like knowing about the conspiracy stuff really quickly because of my kind of quantum awakening, and then getting the piece of Jesus, I was like so prideful and like decoding stuff. Like I would like decode things. Sometimes I would get like 6 million views and stuff on Twitter. Like I was like so in like prideful about all that, but it was a dopamine rush. Like for a long time, I was getting like hundreds of followers every day and like millions of views. And I was like loving, and then like I would lose followers and get upset and like wouldn't get great views or I get censored. And it was like super humbling for me. Yeah, but the point is, though, is there's a dopamine rush to conspiracy. There's a dopamine, like the Luciferian labyrinth. It rewards you for this. Is it's mind programming you?
I asked you some about this in person because it's always fascinated me, and I told you for a long time I was an atheist. So, like you, I didn't believe in the spiritual stuff. Certainly, like Ouija board and psychics. I was like, give me a break. What a grift. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to get into this, and now I understand that a lot of it can be real, and it doesn't mean that they're all real. There probably are a lot of grifters. I've often said,
for sure,
when someone's offering to give you spiritual, let's say, help or whatever the case may be, if they're paying, if you're paying them, there's something dark about what they're doing, because you can go to your spiritual father or your priest and get spiritual help for free. So I find it weird when, like, once I saw that happening, I'm like, wait, so they're charging you $200 for be careful. Not only be careful, don't do it. But so I asked you this in person. You said, no, some psychics are actually real. And now I grasp that that's very likely the reality. So talk about that.
Yeah. So I was also skeptical of psychics, which is crazy. Like that's how I was blinded to my own abilities. Like I said, I just would do these, like at first, I think it was just like really the lucid, like I talk about it in my book, how I started like having lucid dreams when I was probably like 7 years old, repetitive lucid dreams. And that's when I first entered the Luciferian labyrinth. Cause when like the meditation, when you have that like black space, that's like the kind of in between. I think there is like a portal sometimes in like the third eye or whatever that, in Stranger Things, it's like that black place where 11 is. And in the dream world or the psychedelic realm, like it's outer space, maybe. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of the same thing. So it's a dangerous sort of place, but that's where the programming can happen. And so I feel like I kind of was like entered into that. And then the psychedelic realm, I really like the spiritual realm was like teaching me how to be a psychic without me realizing it. And then, so I was always skeptical of these things. But then in 2020, I became friends with the girl who was like, I just talked to a psychic and she told me, I started talking to her 3 months ago, and she told me that in either 3 months or 3 years, I was going to get pregnant. And guess what? I found out today, 3 months later, that I'm pregnant. And I was like, what? Give me that psychic's phone number. Because I was starting to wake up. And so I called the psychic, and instantly the first thing she told me, because she would like connect to the spiritual realm right away. She's Charlotte in the book. Her name is Charlotte.
Yeah.
she like the spiritual realm told her the first thing, this is how they get you. You got to gain someone's trust to break their trust. They told me I had a problem in my back, which I did. When I was a couple of years prior, I'd been diagnosed with early onset arthritis, and I was like 36. And I was like, great, I'm bipolar and I'm medicated and I was overweight at the time. I was like, this is awful. Now I have arthritis. I was on muscle relaxers for 2 years. And this was
what a catch.
I know.
Yes.
I was like, this sucks. I was like, gave up on life. I became all of that. It was awful. And anyways, the spiritual realm told Charlotte that I needed red light therapy to heal my back. And I'd never heard of it before. So I went and got cold red laser therapy. And guess what? It healed my back. So I was, oh my gosh, I'm listening. And so I would call her every month and she just knew things. And then in a couple months later, and by 6 months after talking to her, 10/10/2020, it's a chapter in my book called Contact. It's the craziest thing I ever did. It was with Ruby, the friend that I made from the new agey group, the cult, that like kind of like culty new agey group. And I realized they were kind of trying to like get me into their cult that's in the book. But Ruby and I had opened the circle and summoned in aliens, our star family, because we were trying to activate our psychic abilities on 10/10/2020, which was when the veil is considered thin. It's in October. And on 10/10/2020, that's considered like a special day because of the numbers. Like the spiritual realm is like a big supercomputer. It works on binary code. John Dee channeled this with Queen Elizabeth in the 1500s, Enochian magic. Like that's what Aleister Crowley's teachings came from. It's all connected. Like spiritual realm is a giant supercomputer AI, and unfortunately, Project Stargate's probably going to help bring that in, but another conversation. That day, I just got myself distracted on projects. I had to say this Project Stargate thing. Ruby and I, we summoned in spirits on 10/10/2020, and what was my reasoning for saying this?
Just we're getting him back to the psychic part. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. That was when I left my body. I astral projected and completely mind melded with the spirit. Like it was the most like I became possessed by the spirit. It came into my body. Like I came down. I could see it in my body. It was talking to me from inside. It's in my book, chapter called Contact. The next week I had my phone call with Charlotte. The first thing she said, and she got on the phone and she goes, "Oh, there's a star being with you." She knew that I had astral projected and mind melded. And she was like, "They've got keys for you. And 12 keys. They're going to give you 12 keys. They've given you the first key." And she would tell me then after that, like when I needed to have a ceremony and to summon them in, and that you're going to get another couple keys next week. You better get your psychedelics together. You and Ruby need to go do grid work, which is like clearing the ley lines. And this is something they do in the occult. They say there's these energy grid lines around the world, and that you have to like heal them or bring them. It's basically like praying and meditating. They call it spiritual mapping in the NAR, in the New Apostolic Reformation. Like I saw a lot of the occult and a lot of the denominations that I fell into as a new Christian, and I saw it right away because I was an ex-occultist, and I was like, "Whoa, what's wrong in Christianity?" Like, Charlotte, and eventually, what happened on our phone calls is she would see something in her psychic plane, and I'd see it at the same time. So she'd start talking about something, and I'd be seeing it in my head, and I was just getting confirmations. Like she'd remote view in the room I was in and like tell me what was around me and what spirits were around me. And then I started seeing them. Like one time we had a phone call. This is so funny, weird. We're both having this vision, and she's like, "Oh, the spiritual realm's giving you a gift. They want to give you a magic wand." And I see this like something like this branch fall in my yard, and I have it and I see it. I'm sitting in my room. I'm on the phone. I get off the phone with her and I go into my yard, and sure enough, there's that stick. Literally that I saw in my head, like fall to the ground, like, and I never did anything with it. I actually broke it over my knee because I was like, that's a little wonky for me. I don't need, I didn't need magic wands. I didn't need tarot cards. I just literally could commune with the spiritual realm. And like, it was, I was an accidental natural medium, and it was very dangerous because I had no spiritual armor at all. I was a spiritual realms. Until I became a follower of Christ, and then they turned on me and tried to,
Okay, you've walked me in. So you're good.
To kill me.
It's like you're a pro at this. How did that part happen? How did you say, I think maybe Christ is real? Let me go to a church. You, like you mentioned, you found kind of a mega church at first, And now you're just saying the spirits were not happy about this. Talk about that transition.
Yeah. So everything was like great when I was like trying to do these psychedelics and summoning spirits. They were friendly with me. I never had a bad trip. Like people, when I started talking against like the dangers of psychedelics, people would be like, sorry, you had a bad trip. And I was like, I never had a bad trip. I loved doing psychedelics. It was awesome. The spirits were really nice to me. They were my friends. Like I wrote a chapter called Blind Spot in my book. Like these spirits, literally these demons, the enemy convinced me that they were my friends. I sat at the table with them, dined with the enemy. And but then, I was working as a psychic and I got a vision of Jesus after 2 months. And I don't want to give away too much of the book because it's all in my book, but I stopped divination after that. Something happened to me when I got that vision. Like I got that vision and I didn't believe in Jesus at the time. So I was like, oh, this is probably the ascended master, Jesus. Because that's what people that don't believe in Christ as Christians, if they believe in Jesus, oh yeah, Jesus lived. Yeah, that's great. He was really smart. He was the best prophet ever. You know what you say to someone? So he was the smartest guy ever, the best prophet, the nicest guy, but he was a liar. He said he was God. So, it doesn't fit together. But that's what people believe. And so I thought, oh, this must be that ascended master Jesus coming in. And I was like, oh, gosh, this is embarrassing. I have to tell my client about Jesus being here. But I told her and she actually liked it. But something happened to me. It's like the essence of him stuck around and the Holy Spirit like punctured me and I just fall to my knees crying. I just knew it. All of a sudden, I just knew it. That was God. He died for us. He was crucified. He was the missing piece. Like I could see it. Once I saw it, it was obvious. That's why everything in this world's about Jesus.
Yes.
Everybody knows Jesus. I could go online and say, I love Buddha. Yeah. No one gives me a hard time. But the moment I started talking about Christ, everybody turned. It was crazy. Like I couldn't even say Jesus Christ comfortably at first. Like I didn't believe he was real. Again, I got to see that mind programming was real. Like just like I was a hardcore liberal who hated Donald Trump.
Yes.
Taking an antidepressant would make me happy and that wanted to get a vaccine off the black market. I also believed Jesus was fake. But I had woken up to other levels of mind programming. So when I saw it happen this time, I was like, oh my God. Wow. So I'm only alive because God I gave my life to him in 2020, when I almost, that day it's called baptism in my book, that's what the spirit realm told me. They told me they took me to the divine chapel of the gods and I was getting a baptism.
And so how'd you find your way then to the mega church?
So right after I became a follower of Christ, I had a podcast called my podcast, Let's Be Friends, that I started in 2021 because I needed to talk about my awakening and I had no one to talk to. Everybody had canceled me in my real life. So I had a guest on the show she was a really popular occult symbolism, self-proclaimed occult symbolism expert, like Hollywood decoder. And it was a really popular show. And she was a Christian, but I wasn't quite like a Jesus person yet, but I was questioning it. So I liked talking to her, but I still was not sure about her. But everybody loved the show, the episode with her. So they're like, have her back on. So I had her back on and then I had her back on again. And then people were like, you guys need to start a podcast together. But right before that, I had started also attending her Bible study online. This is a key point. Like she ran a Bible study twice a week.
Okay.
She,
Protestant?
Yes, but non-denominational. She had gone to like a Journeys church, like a charismatic church. And she was a lifelong Christian. She thought she had all the answers. She told me to not go to any church, that they were all compromised. Don't go to another Bible study. They'll mislead you. So she became my Bible mentor. I was going to her Bible study 2 times a week. I didn't know anything about Christianity. And we started a podcast together. So she was my biblical mentor. She became my business partner and she was my best friend who I like voice memoed every day. She lived in another state. We never met, but we talked all the time. And
wow. Okay.
So totally engulfed my life completely with this woman. Okay.
Yeah.
And I even almost went to meet her. She lived in Idaho. I almost went out to meet her a couple times. Never worked out. But then all of a sudden that summer, like we had a podcast called Not So Secret Societies. Probably some people listening to the show heard it. It was like 13 on the Apple charts at one point in time. It was really popular. Like
judging by the name of it, people that are listening right now, some of them listen to that, I'm sure.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's no more now, but it was like, 40,000 downloads an episode. Like it was crazy. And that's where I gave my testimony, because we started the show and she was like, it was really popular, but she was like, hey, my Christian audience is really worried about me collaborating with you because they think you're still in the occult. Because I was fresh out of the occult and I had my Instagram for like a year. By then I probably only had like 5,000 followers, but I used to do occult things on there. So I was like, okay, what do we need to do? Because I didn't want to lose the show. She's like, well, I need you to give your testimony and I need you to stop smoking weed. Because I used to smoke a ton of weed. Like I would do like, it was really bad looking back now. I would do like Instagram live smoking weed and like read the Bible and stuff. I know. But like, that was like right when I first right. So I was like, okay, yeah. I'm a real person. Like I think a lot of people tell me online that like they like following my journey or they like my content because I'm really raw and real. Online's pretty fake. So, sometimes we just want something real. So I was just being myself at the time. So a good thing came out of it is I did like shape up on the weed thing and I quit smoking weed. And I went and gave my testimony. And I didn't know what testimonies were at the time. I didn't know Christians did this. I didn't know I had a weird testimony. So I gave my testimony, which is just telling like my straight, like chronological story of how I became a follower of Christ. It went viral because of this podcast. And so, so we had this show, like we were really, she was like my mentor. We would joke like I was her Timothy, she was Paul. We'd talk about conspiracy, but tie it to, which I now know is futurism, end times. Like we're in the last 7 years of tribute, all this stuff. Like the Antichrist is going to be a military figure and all these things are going to, and it was tied to conspiracy. And it's so obvious to me now that it's being scripted out and like used against us. But anyways, so I started questioning things over the summer now this is my income too. We were making so much money on the show. It became both of our income. And but I started realizing like, why are we going viral? I was like, I know enough that what gets promoted on the algorithm is probably not the truth. And my boyfriend was like, you have a QAnon podcast, Cara. That's why it's going viral. And I was like, no, we don't. I thought, because when QAnon was like big in the news, I was listening to NPR World News on the Hour, and I thought these were Molotov cocktail throwing Antifa people, basically. I thought that was QAnon. Right. I didn't know it was people that were in the rabbit hole and conspiracy just questioning reality. I literally there's another one for you. That's how it's a different world.
God forbid NPR ever actually called the Molotov cocktail throwers actually left-wing Antifa people. Right. They'd never admit that. Those are the people. See, like how the Capitol storming, that psyop? That's what people would think QAnoners are these crazy, the shaman guy, these crazy. People still think that.
Hurt us. It's crazy. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And all it is literally just like the Epstein Islands, like Pizzagate, like all these conspiracies, which there's a lot of truth to, but there's a handle on it.
Yes.
It's being used. Like it could be some people believe it's like a military supercomputer that DARPA created or something, or maybe QAnon started out with good intentions and like Bill, a lot of these, people that we see out there, I think they started with good intentions, but I think I became controlled opposition at times when I was pushing Protestantism, when I was pushing not so secret societies, and we were talking about Pizzagate and Hollywood and all these conspiracies that I now see we are scripted to talk about. Because I finally started researching the counterculture movement, learned about the Discordian movement, all like which I did an episode on my podcast called Clownspiracy. I probably don't have time right now to explain all of that, but there was a scripted movement to create chaos and disorder in this world with conspiracies. And that, so anyways, I'm with this, I start questioning what we're talking about on the podcast. And then soon after I start questioning what my co-host thought in Christianity. And that was the line for her. Me questioning some of the stuff about conspiracy, she was okay with this. But once I said, I don't think we can lose our salvation, that was it. I now don't believe that. But at the time I did. And she said, I want to sever all ties with you. Pulled the podcast off in like a day. She changed the Bible study link. My Bible study kicked me out, basically. My first Christian experience was just Karens picking me apart online, telling me that everything I was doing was wrong, not feeling comfortable or accepted by Christianity. And then my mentor drops me in an instant. I have no church, all I do, I believe in Jesus. And I see like how real he is. But then I lose my job. I lost my income. My dog was dying. My best friend, I read about her in the What is Love chapter in the book. And she's dying. Someone very close to me was dealing with massive addiction issues. everything was falling apart in my life at the same time. It was the worst time in my life. Like I found out I was they told me I was bipolar in 2012 when I checked myself in the psych ward because I was suicidal because my boyfriend had broken up with me. That had been like the worst time of my life. This became the worst time of my life. And it was awful. Like I feel like I could almost cry now thinking about how awful it was. And it hurt me so bad when my co-host just severed ties with me. She was my best friend. She was my biblical mentor, business partner. Our like friendship was big online. Everybody was into our business online. Like we were personnel. I would go to like this podcast, Blurry Creatures. I would go to their members meetings and they were pretty popular at the time. People would come, oh, Cara's on here. Like everything was really public and it was awful to have to deal with. I was getting hundreds of messages a day after that. We just pulled the podcast and gave a generic like statement that we were still friends but parted ways. It was a lie. She wanted nothing to do with me all of a sudden. I question that a lot. And I'll keep a lot of these questions to myself, but don't trust everybody you meet on the internet. So then after that, I was very isolated and alone and I felt I'm going to read the Bible myself. So I started reading the Bible myself in 2023. And then I started attending a church in Austin that a friend was going to because I was so depressed around Christmas that year. She's like, come. And it was the church I ended up getting baptized at. And I learned a ton about the Bible at that church. That's a great thing that Protestant churches do. They teach you a lot about the Bible. Some of it might not be correct, but you might know the stories. And I got baptized. And then I started researching church history. And that was fall 2023. Yeah. And that was what led me to Orthodoxy. And at the same time, the Protestant church, the non-denominational church I was going to, was studying Acts. Ironically, I'm researching church history about the first. It all was God, and I just like took me to Orthodoxy, and I never left. And then I
always wonder how Protestant churches cover the book of Acts without going, wait, this isn't us.
I never made it to the end. I was like only there. They're still on Acts too. It's over a year later. Someone told me.
So somehow, what'd you do? You researched church history, and you were like, so this original church is the Orthodox Church, and you look it up in Austin and try to find one to go to, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I just thought I have to, basically like every 6 months, I kind of think to myself since I started waking up, what am I being sapped or like lied to about now? What don't I know about now? I'm always ready for it. And it always surprises me that God will reveal something else. Because I thought that once I was following Jesus and in that Bible study with my co-host, I was there. Then I thought at Austin Ridge, oh, I'm there. And then all of a sudden I find out like I go to the Orthodox Church because I research church history and I want to because I'm like, how can all these denominations exist and everybody has their own truth? I can't do this again. This was the occult too. Like I have my truth and you have your truth. Well, mine cancels yours out. I'm not an idiot. What's like this? Just tell me. I want God. You had to have preserved your truth. And everybody's arguing over which, like, oh my God, like which version of the Bible is better. And so stupid, honestly, like now looking back, I had so much anxiety. I was reading the wrong version of the Bible. The worst thing you could do is not like get into the Orthodox Church. Like it's not about what version of the Bible you're reading.
Yes.
You know, it's, but it's how close you are to God. Are you repenting? Are you getting sanctified? Like, but yeah, I eventually went to the Orthodox Church. I had to check it out. And I didn't think I'd stay. I thought I was going to be attacked by the graven images. And I had people in my life at the time warning me and
about the icons.
Yeah, you're going to be demonic. This is demonic attack.
Oh my gosh.
And I had this crazy theory that the saints were just the fallen angels in disguise and hidden in the church. And because of all this is what happens. The luciferian labyrinth.
Yep.
Mind programming.
Well, and so you were at that one. Now you're at this one that I go to. How do you feel about where you're at with everything?
It's crazy because I did not expect to be switching churches right now at all. I became a catechumen at the church I was at last May, and I started going there in February, right before Great Lent. Amazing time to enter the church. My second time at church was Forgiveness Sunday. Mm-hmm. And it was powerful for me to come into that church. And I feel like attached to that church because it's a beautiful church. It's very close. So many nice people there. I really had a wonderful experience there. But it just really comes down to this baptism thing for me. If I go and get chrismated, no father, no priest is going to baptize me after that.
Right.
I want the baptism. It has to happen now. And I've had like even some of the fathers from the church I was going to say, well, Seraphim Rose, he had a Protestant baptism and he's okay with it. And it's like, yeah, but I'm never going to be Seraphim Rose. Like, I'm not going to go be a monk or like get to that level. I think he's going to be a saint, eventually.
Yes,
I actually call him Saint Seraphim Rose all the time.
So do I. Yes.
Yeah. And he's the first saint that came to me.
Me too.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's amazing. See, you get that kind of even unsaid. I have chills in the back of my head. But you get that? That's how the saints work. It's really magical. And so, and so then I'd hear like, Saint Elizabeth the Martyr, or she, had a Lutheran baptism or whatever. And it's like, again, that was 1,000 years ago. Or they'd talk about this was set on this time. And it just, but then I asked an Antiochian priest, I asked a Greek priest, and I asked a Russian priest, would they baptize me, to get different opinions? And they all said, if you questioned your baptism, then yes. Because my church says, because it was in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that's it. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't matter who baptized me. But so like someone who's Mormon, their Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit's not the same. So they get a new baptism. Well, I think a Protestant Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit might not be the same.
Mm-hmm. It is fun. I mean, not to look for synchronicity then and everything like you mentioned earlier, but it is interesting that I didn't know you were really going through this battle with the baptism thing. I heard you talk to our priest about it, and then I record that episode, and the next time I see you, I go, hey, look, I made this clip from the episode, and it's Father Peter saying, well, if a catechumen or a new inquirer wants to get baptized, and the priest says, no, you go find another parish. And it's now like knowing your story, the fact that I had that clip for you.
It's crazy.
It is cool timing.
It's Seraphim. He's helping us.
There it is. Yeah.
It is. No, I mean, he's my biggest icon right now. I have all my icons on my piano in my house. Well, there are some other places too, but it's amazing. Actually, like I went to this church a couple times, twice, 6 months ago. There I'm going now, where you go. And because at that time, I knew that they wouldn't, I learned they wouldn't baptize me at St. Elias. And so I went, and I had a feeling maybe they will hear. Our fathers, no problem. No problem. What a relief. And I live in a different city. I'm commuting like to about 30, 40 minutes from where I live now to come to church. Whereas it was like 5-10 minutes to go to the old church. It was convenient, but this isn't supposed to be convenient and comfortable. We talked about this earlier, Yeah. We're getting bitter cups. Like that's friction to, it takes pressure to make a diamond. Diamonds don't come off laying on the couch in idiocracy, drinking Mountain Dew, and watering your grass with it. And then, I had a meeting with the father of my church, and honestly, I had this meeting and I didn't even really understand everything he was saying, but it was just like, came out of it like, I was like, I think I'm being prideful and my baptism's fine. And this father says that chrismation is going to take care of anything my baptism was lacking. But then I started having really bad suicide ideations over the summer. And I think this is demons. Like we mentioned earlier, like what happened after I turned away from all of them, they shined me up. I'd say Lucifer shined me up as his tool. They need mediums. These are beings that are formless. They're disembodied spirits. They need us, these physical vessels, which we have got. And so he shined me up, and then I went to Team Jesus. And spiritual realm was not happy. And I started getting like voices in my head, the voices that used to give me all this helpful information and everything. My buddies essentially like trying to get me to kill myself. It's horrible. And that started coming back last summer. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. I thought I was baptized. Where's my period of, I was also, the father I spoke to said, you should have had a period of grace after your baptism too. I'm like, I didn't get a period of grace. No. I haven't had that break at all. Like, I want to kill myself again. These voices are in my head. Like, I'm not doing
wouldn't it be so tempting to ask that particular priest, okay, so fine, go along with this. I'll get chrismated here at this church. I won't get the baptism. That baptism was good. So then once I get chrismated, can I go to that place where I got baptized and do communion with them? Oh, that's not good. Then you can't do that.
Yeah.
The communion's not good. Right. Baptism, check. Communion. Yeah, it's like,
exactly. Exactly.
All right. We're coming to the end of this adventure. I think there's going to be more of these because it feels like a natural flowing good conversation.
Thank you. I agree.
Thanks. Plug away the book, the website, or anything you've got, really.
Yeah.
I'm showing the book again.
So it's a memoir, Here Comes Trouble. I'm dropping on Amazon right now, so it should be up there for you to purchase if you want, or it's on my website, caramosher.com. I have a podcast called Let's Be Friends, and if you really want to be good friends, you can join my friendship membership, where I do bonus episodes and backstage stuff. Buck was just on. We did a video I gave to my members. I put just the audio out on their main platform. Here Comes Trouble on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, though I don't really like TikTok at all. I didn't care when it was gone on the TikTok ban. But yeah, just let's be friends. I've been through a lot, and I feel like the more we open up and share with each other, that we realize we're not alone. Yeah, that's it, I guess. Thank you for having me on the show, Buck. I agree. I feel like it's so comfortable talking with you. I feel like I've given some of my best interviews chatting with you, and you're an excellent interviewer. I feel very comfortable, and I can't wait to have you share your testimony on my show, and I'd be honored to come back on here anytime. Absolutely.
And I will say, as easy as Cara is to talk to, if you guys have gathered that, that's how easy this book is to read. We met up the other day and circled multiple chapters that I had to, you got to read this one. I devoured them quick. And so then I just started going through the other ones. It's like you keep wanting to, all right. And this is maybe the short attention span people have now, including myself. Your chapters are short. Because every time I start a chapter, I always go through, how long is this one? Oh, I can read this. And each time I'm like, well, I can get through this one. I can get through this one. So I just kept doing that.
I love short stories. That's why I like simple writing, quick to the point. I don't like it when people just like say a lot of words to sound smart and stuff. So I hope I wrote in a way. Yeah, that makes me happy. A friend said that my book is like a reality TV show, or it's like a guilty pleasure, like kind of fun.
It's like this interview.
Yeah.
It's like this interview. Like as you're saying some of these, I'm like, I read this almost line for line that you're saying.
I say things the same. It almost sounds like sometimes when I know I'm saying things exactly. I've given I gave a lot of interviews like 2 years ago. I told you this is the first interview I've given in honestly, it feels like a year or two. And I say repeat a lot of the same things because I've said it over and over again. And with writing the book. And so, I don't want to stray from just like the Orthodox way of saying things.
Yes. Yep. Fair. Cara, thanks for being here on Counterflow. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
All right. I hope you guys loved that episode. I certainly did. I'm pretty sure most of you are going to really dig that. Hey, by the way, the Patreon Zoom session is this week, as this one drops on Tuesday. Let's see, the 9th. I think this is dropping on the 11th. The 13th, that's right, this drops on the 11th. On the 13th, February 13th, Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, we are doing our Patreon supporter Zoom session. If you are not part of that, go to patreon.com, as the ad said in this broadcast, patreon.com/counterflow, $5 or more per month. Get you into this group. This week's guest, or this month's guest, is Father Seraphim Holland, out of, I think it's McKinney, all those North Texas towns right around Dallas and Fort Worth. There's a bunch of them. They all kind of mix together to me. But I know Father Seraphim Holland in real life. I met him with Father Turbo and Father Moses. And I actually saw Father Seraphim working out in Father Moses' garage with him. Great priest, great man. We are going to talk about basically, why are we here? What is our purpose? Why do we exist? And we'll bounce quickly to all of the people in the Zoom. Again, it's not recorded. It's not broadcast live anywhere. It's private. You guys can ask him anything you'd like. And we're going to do that this Thursday night, February 13th, the night before Valentine's Day. Hope to see you guys in there. I always look forward to these Zoom sessions. Again, thanks to Cara Mosher, my friend. And go check her podcast out soon. I will be doing an episode on her show. We're kind of doing a little trade-off here. And I suspect she will be back on this show at some point. As for the show, let's see, counterflowpodcast.com. We got new music coming. We have a new theme song coming soon. There's your little hint. If you're in the Telegram group, you've already had the opportunity to hear it because I posted it in there. Boy, my man Mano, I like, either way, Mano from the Study of Stuff, and Post, who's part of that group in there. Goodness gracious, I will be giving them full credit once we get rolling, so you can go check out their work. The music they made for this show, incredible. Incredible. So until next week, where we have our guy that you guys asked me to get, fairly often I get a request. Would you get Father Zechariah Lynch back on? Well, yes, I will. He will be on next week. Until then, you guys have a good one.
You get split in half, but I call him the hologram brass. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Counterflow Podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.